Hi and welcome, and we're really pleased to welcome a very special guest today, Steve Carroll. Steve Carroll's from Moon Shadow Therapies. Steve's a Reiki master and teacher, and a teacher of the form reality practice. Hiya, Steve, how are you?
Hi, Alana. I'm very good, thank you.
And just want to introduce Mike. Mike, do you want to say hello?
Yeah, I do, because I've met this chap once before and he's incredible. And I'm really looking forward to, just sharing half an hour of inspiration with this man. Because the last time I met him at a show, I don't think I got off to the best possible start. I think I shook his hand wrong or inappropriately. And so, I've waited 3 months just to say, sorry, I was inappropriate with you, Steve. But I'm really looking forward to this because I've got a feeling that Steve's going to share some incredible information with our listeners.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you. So let's kick off then. First question then, Steve. Can you tell us what is the form reality practice?
Right. Well, the form was devised by a visionary called Bernie Pryor, and he brought this to fruition just by playing with movement, and he got somebody that he knew, and what they call the dance. Actually, it's not a treatment as such. And he danced the form around this person, and it just had an amazing effect. Now, I was introduced to the form while I was a volunteer at Sandville Self-Help Centre in Tonkenfig. I was there one day a week for a period of almost just over 3 years, and the form was being used there, and I was mesmerized by its movement because I was offering Reiki, but I was mesmerized by the movement. So that was my initial introduction with the form.
Okay, so is this sort of like dance movement or like a walking meditation? How does it work?
You're very close on the second point there. It's classed as a moving meditation, and the movements are very, very much like Tai Chi and Qigong, where you're just moving energy.
So you talk about energy. What if somebody was coming to the form reality practice for the first time? What would you mean by this energy?
Well, it's the universal life force energy, which any energy practitioner, whether it's the form, Omni, Karuna Reiki, Angelic Reiki, any, spiritual healing, it's all the same energy, but it's just moved and channeled in different ways. And of course, as we're all individuals, it therefore works very differently with the person that's channeling or moving this energy, and equally with the person receiving, because often enough, no two people always have the same experiences. I mean, obviously you will have people share the same experiences because obviously there's so many people in the world, but generally there are differences because we are all different.
Yeah. And so how did you move from seeing the form reality practice occurring and then actually moving into becoming a practitioner of it?
Well, during some quiet time, the guy who was dancing the form at Sandville asked if I would like to have a to watch initially. So I sat and watched while he danced the form around a client, I think, for the lack of a better description. And again, I was just so taken aback with the movement, and it was almost hypnotic. And it was just amazing to watch. So after he'd finished, and obviously I saw where he was going and what he was doing, because there's very little contact with the form. I had a treatment, for the lack of a better description, myself, and it was nice, shall we say, for me. And from there, really watching the form, when there was a chance to learn how to do it, I jumped at the opportunity. So And when I started myself to move with the form, that for me was the point. It was the movement for me was just something fantastic.
So if somebody's sort of sitting, I'm assuming they're sitting, you might correct me if I'm wrong, but if they're sitting in front of you, is it the practitioner that does the movements, or is it the client, or is it both? How does it work?
Well, for the client, it's lovely because they just have to sit there and do absolutely nothing, which is fantastic because I think sometimes people wonder, well, what am I supposed to do? And I think with any energy healing, the point is to get the client as relaxed as possible because as most people know who work with energy, is that the more relaxed the physical body is, the better it receives energy, the better the energy centers work, and obviously, the body's own immune system will work better, and therefore, because when people are asleep, that's when the body heals itself because it's totally relaxed.
And so when somebody's sort of in front of you and experiencing the form, is the energy transfer from the practitioner to the client, or is the practitioner a kind of conduit for energy to come through?
I think first and foremost, any energy healer is a conduit, because we've learned to vibrate on a slightly higher vibration. Therefore, we're more in tune with the energy, so it's easier then. I look almost as we amplify that energy, so people generally then get to experience it that maybe they wouldn't on their own. It's the same if I work with crystals. I always look at a crystal, it amplifies the energy that you're channeling through. So yeah, so first and foremost, yes, I channel. Secondly, that has to mix with the energy of the client who sat there, and then you move the energy around. And of course, the whole point of the form, it's not a healing as such, but it's to center the energy back to the self, so we start to have a better understanding of who we are, which I think is such an important place to start in any sort of form of spiritual development, or healing modem or whatever. We have to understand ourselves first.
Yeah, and I was going to ask, really, you mentioned that there was no or limited contact. So does the practitioner work around the person? I know with you as a Reiki practitioner, you sometimes place hands directly onto the person's physical body. Sometimes you don't. Is the form similar in that kind of way, or is it very different?
I would say very different. First of all, the client is seated. You start by standing to the right hand side, and yes, you basically work around the body. It's all about expanding energy, then bringing it back in, lifting energy, and then bringing it back down again. Because obviously, after any energy practice, we have to be grounded. So you can't leave a client floating around on cloud nine, because although it's a nice feeling sometimes, we still have to live in the real world. So it's important that we come back and are firmly grounded. As far as touching, the only three places that are touch is once on the feet, once on the shoulders, and once at the top of the head. Everything else is all movement.
Okay. And so when you're doing the form reality practice, what's it like from a practitioner perspective? Are you seeing things? Are you feeling things? What's your experience, being the conduit for that particular therapy?
I tend not to see things because obviously you're aware of where you have to be on the physical. So you're aware that hands have to be in certain positions, and obviously when you're moving, it's more a feeling. And sometimes you can feel so detached from where you are that you finished and you wonder what had just happened, because you're almost, it's almost like a time lapse. because it's like with any, you benefit yourself because you're moving with the energy, and I tend to feel absolutely amazing afterwards. I feel very calm, very energized, and it's such a lovely feeling. It really is, and that's just for me. For me, for clients, it varies. I think first and foremost, the most people see color. That is the major thing. People see color. People tend to feel very relaxed. Some have seen guides, some have seen, and some of them have even seen loved ones that have crossed over. And that, believe it or not, has usually been an amazing experience rather than a sad one. And I'm very much on the teaching of people, is that it's not sad to know that a loved one is still there watching over you and their energy is still around. And I think sometimes a little explanation on this does help, because not everybody understands, because obviously we miss the physical loss, but again, not everybody's in tune enough to understand that their energy is still around. And I think when you explain it in such a way, and how energies from the other side feel, I think it gives a very, very different perspective. But I think it makes somebody stronger, because they don't feel that loss anymore.
So a client coming to you and experiencing the form reality practice, how do they kind of get attracted to it? Because it's quite an unusual, it's quite an unusual therapy, really. It's not one that I've heard of or been very familiar with. So it's it's interesting to sort of explore something that feels more new.
It is, and obviously, if I hadn't gone to Sandville, I don't think I would have known about it. It's as simple as that, really. And I think it's only by talking to somebody that does it, or actually looking for it, that you will know it's there. I use the form, I think, first and foremostly, generally for the average person, to relax, because I think so many people are, taken up with life stresses and strains, that the first point you have to start is just to learn to relax. And of course, once you've relaxed, you then become more open. Then when you become more open, you then start to realize the energy of the form. And the form energy centers it back to the self. So it's like you're channeling the energy for that person to start to learn to empower themselves. And I think that's the greatest strength in anybody. If anybody can learn to empower themselves than having to rely on other people, I think that's an amazing thing. The form just kick-starts that. And of course, it's like with any healing or energy therapy, is that, we all need topping up. We all need it. People who are therapists need to have therapy, because we're not invincible. We're still human beings.
So who would be the types of people that would come to experience the form reality practice?
Firstly, I would say people who struggle to meditate, people who are going through maybe spiritual awakening, that are finding it difficult to tune into that energy, or they're not quite there yet. So having somebody to have to do this moving meditation for them does help immensely. And because it's relaxing not just the physical but the mental side as well, and therefore when we are relaxed, we're more open to energy. So it's great for somebody going through spiritual development. It's also very good for people who are, should we say, suffering stress, or they're struggling to sleep because they have too much on their minds, or they're struggling to relax. And it's great for those people who maybe are not quite sure about healing, as we call it, healing energy, or people transferring, energy to somebody else. It's full contact, and because somebody sat in a chair, people feel a lot less vulnerable. So it's a good starting point to show people that a simple technique can help you start to relax. Well, anybody can have the form. Somebody just wants to have a quiet 15 minutes, just to gather their thoughts. It's great for people who have very busy lives that want to just have that little 15 minutes out for themselves that help them cope with life's difficulties. And it could be anybody from, somebody at home, whether they're a housewife, house husband, looking after kids, whether you're an MD of a successful business. We all suffer some sort of stress. We all work too hard, and we don't give ourselves enough time out to just allow the body and mind to recharge itself. And a simple 15 minutes can make such a difference. And when I worked with some people, not necessarily with the form, although I did use the form, when I was showing people what it was like just to take time out. These were people that had been long-term sick and were coming back into the workplace. And of course, a lot of people in that position were suffering with lack of self-esteem, self-confidence. But once they realized they could take themselves away from the chaos and, being available for everybody, that they could actually have time out for themselves, they found that very, very empowering. And from that point, then you forward. So again, depending on where you are in the line of your own personal growth and development, first and foremost, it's about relaxation. It's about calming the mind and the body. From there, it'll develop then where your mind becomes a little clearer. You might be able to start to develop your own intuition better. So it's like when you come to making decisions, your mind is a lot clearer. And you feel a bit more confident when you're making decisions, instead of, oh, should I ask so-and-so, or should I do this? At the end of the day, we have to learn to trust ourselves. And I think, the form is a part of building somebody to a point where the energy is centering back to themselves and making them stronger, both physically and mentally, and spiritually, of course.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm quite intrigued because I know, you've had quite, you do a number of different practices. Just a little bit about you, really, as a practitioner. What's been your spiritual journey? How have you got to the place that you're at now, and with the services that you offer?
Well, first and foremost, it was a life-changing thing. My thyroid decided to pack up, which took 2 years out of my life. It taught me who were my friends. It taught me a lot of things. It also taught me that I didn't need some of the negativities in my life that I was hanging on to. But, that wasn't straight away, because obviously, after 2 years, you've got to build yourself back up. So I got back into work, which was no problem. But it was socially I struggled with, because the people I thought were my friends turned out not to be that wonderful. So I had a complete clear out. I let everybody go, and I started again. So even though I had a job, I took a second job to just be out and get out and meet people. And I thought, yeah, this is okay, but I need to do something more. And I thought, well, I could always go down to the pub, and there's probably people in 2 pubs that I met that I knew 10 years ago that probably still be there. And I thought, no, that's not what I want. And I thought, I started looking at the adult learning courses, and Reiki was one of them. And I was just drawn to it straight away. And from September 2008 was the beginning of my journey. And the people that I have in my life now are from that time. and they're the best people I've ever had. And my spiritual family has grown. I'm glad they don't all come and stay over, because I'd have to buy a hotel. So, I've been very blessed. But first and foremost, it helped me. It helped me grow stronger. It helped me realize that I am the only person I need in some respects, because, I was strong enough to be on my own. And the people that I have in my life were a bonus, and what a bonus they were. And I've just grown from there. I did find volunteering at Sandville after doing Reiki was a great grounding for me, because you're not just dealing with a close friend or a family member that just wants Reiki for maybe genuine reasons, but because you're closely connected with them. It's very different than when you give a treatment to somebody that you know nothing about. And Sandville was a wonderful, wonderful grounding for me, and a learning curve, because I dealt with people with all sorts of issues, physical, mental, and their carers, who often needed time out. And to actually connect with somebody on a, I would say, on spiritual level as well as a human level, is the most amazing thing. But it's a powerful thing, and it's something that really does need to be respected. And I think one of the biggest important things is knowing how to communicate over to somebody who may not understand what you do, in a way that they begin to understand certain things. They don't feel frightened of it, that it is empowering to them. There is no control. You have no control over them whatsoever. And I think the most important thing is that you give your treatment the way they want it. Some people don't mind hands-on. People prefer hands-off. You respect that. We have to be mindful, I think, is the biggest word there, of what people are going through. And before I say anything, if I have picked up on anything, I ask them, is it okay if I share what I feel? I never diagnose anything, and I never tell anybody what to do. I only advise, and I always say to people, do your own research and go with what you feel is right for you. And that is so, so important. And again, this is about taking responsibility for the self. It's all very well, especially with vulnerable people, you can say things to them and they'll go off and do, and if it doesn't work out, they'll say, oh, well, you told me to do that. But the point is, research it, look at all the options, the good, the bad, the indifferent, and make your own decision. Because because there are so many energy treatments out there, not everything is for everyone, because we vibrate on very different frequencies. And it's the same with practitioners. You could have Reiki or the form from a couple of different people, and I guarantee it'll be different.
I mean, that's a great, it's a great lead into my question, Steve, because I'm aware that, I mean, I've sat here very quiet really for half an hour, because I've been listening to Lana, engaging with you, and just I'm sat here just listening to the inspirational way that you talk, which is incredible, and I'm learning so much. I guess the question that I've got for you is, when you think of your experience of working with the form reality practice, how is it that you differ from other practitioners?
That's a very difficult one to answer, because I don't know that many practitioners, because the form isn't widely known generally, apart from those who do it. I think it's the same with any energy healing, Mike, is that it's the individual. It's me. I am different to the guy who introduced me to the form. I'm very different to the guy who taught me the form. Although we tend to come from the same place, which should be from a place of love. And when I say love, I mean the universal love, where we are all the same. We share so many of the same things. And of course, when you're practicing, you're giving unconditionally. There's no there's no self in this at all. And it's how you connect with an individual. And again, we all do that in very, very different ways. And I think, first and foremost, if you're a people person, it really is, the best start you can have. Some people do therapies because it's what they want to do. And it's a business for them. And, maybe not always the energy's moved in the same way. Having known what I've been through and how important my own journey has been, this is what I want to pass on to other people, is the fact that if they're struggling and they're finding it difficult, there is a way out of it. You can start to build. My saying is, there's always a way. If one way doesn't work, there's always another way, and you've just got to keep trying. I hope that answers your question.
It does. And I'm sat here now thinking, do you know what? This has been an incredible interview. I'm my head's swimming, Steve. I mean, I've learned so much from you today, and what I have seen is I've seen your heart. I've seen your heart to help people and to provide support for people that are, in a place of need. And I guess, I don't know that I should ask you this question, because I'm aware that you're a very humble man. But what would you say is ahead for Steve Carroll in 2017?
Amazing things. This has been a massive, since I decided to go self-employed as a healing practitioner. I've also done a few other things. I've done a bit of mentoring, and I've run a Reiki share. There's a lot more opening up to me, and I think the important thing that I've learned is that I've had a few restrictions, are both my own restrictions and also some physical ones that haven't helped. But all these have made me stronger. They've also given me time to think clearer. There are things that are going to be happening very soon that will allow me to be more visual, to be out there a lot more, to reach more people. So I'm very optimistic that there's going to be a lot of there's going to be some business growth, but also I think there's going to be so much personal growth as well, spiritual growth, and all this is because I genuinely want to help other people in the best way I can.
Yeah, and I think what's been a kind of very interesting theme that we've had sort of emerging through previous podcast interviews has been a very strong sense from the practitioner, whichever discipline, whichever energy field they're in, and that's their path. A really strong sense of the last couple of years being incredibly difficult for a number of people, and sort of moving into new space. I mean, what's your take on, how you've seen people over the last 12 months, 2 years, and where you think things are moving to for 2017?
Well, if we look at the only way we look at this is that on things that have in a negative way, we should only look back to things that we've learned from, because everything is what teaches us, and without being a human being, if I hadn't experienced a lot of, things that have gone wrong in my life, I couldn't do what I do now, because how could I empathize? How could I show empathy to another human being? I'm a great believer, and I mean with this no disrespect to people who are on a higher level, because it is good to be there, because it's your own growth and your own development. But we can't stop being human beings, and it's our mistakes, and it's our life as a human that makes us who we are. And I think, if I spent all my life meditating and praying and things like that, I'd be missing out on so much. I'd be missing out on just normal life. And I think that's what we sometimes spend too much time trying to escape it. But the important thing is we have to live on this planet. So therefore, when I talk to people, I'm very earth based. Where I come from is based on this planet. Yes, I can go off, interstellar traveling and astral traveling if I want to, but this is where we live. This is where we have to exist. So this is when I work. This is where I come from. I look at all the reality in everything. And you've got to look at things for what they are, but there are things that take us away from that help us, but never forget we still have to live as a human being. So yeah, I just feel that there's so much more to learn, just going back to Reiki. I'm classed as a Reiki master teacher. Well, with all due respect, it's going to take me probably several lifetimes to be a master, but I've done enough to pass on what I know, to allow people to learn things for themselves. But I'm continually growing. Just because I've got to master teacher level doesn't mean I've stopped learning. I'm constantly learning, learning from my mistakes, learning from the best teachers that I could ever have. And those are my clients, because without them, they give me so much understanding to things that maybe I've not experienced. And although I might not have experienced it, I do get a clearer picture of what some people have to go through, which then gives you that empathy to help others.
Yeah, and I mean, wow, I'm just amazed because this has gone so quickly. We're actually at the end of the time we've got together. So, just Steve, final thoughts in relation to your practice as the form reality practitioner. Any advice, any tips that you'd like to give to existing and or future clients that may be interested in trying out the form reality practice?
Give it a go. I think that's the most important thing, because we can talk about it, but it's the experience of it that's the important thing. Because I've only shared a little bit with you today, and everybody is different. So therefore, some of the things I've mentioned, some people might not feel. It might take people, a couple of goes to start to get the benefit of it. But that experience as an individual, and that's how I talk to people as an individual. This is your experience. So what I'm saying is for you. It's not necessarily covering everything. And I think that's what people like. This is about them. You're not just one of many. Everyone I see is an individual, and experience it. But also there's a shortened version of the form called the Cosmo form, which is a couple of very simple movements that people can do in their own home. And it's a great way of just calming the energy. So, I can show them how to do that. And it's just little things that you can do for yourself, and but experience it. And with anything, just go and experience it and see what it does for you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Steve. Mike, any final thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. I've just had an incredible time. I have. Just, Steve, thank you ever so much for being a guest on the Stellar Media podcast show. It's been an absolute blast for me. And I'm looking forward to getting to know you better. And I wish you, as Lana will, all the best for 2017. I'm absolutely sure that you're about to move into a new space and you are about to see everything that the universe has planned for you. And so just thanks for being part of everything today. It's been an absolute blast for me. I've learned so much, and from the bottom of my heart, I thank you.
And Mike, thank you.